the legend of Lavinia Fisher. So Lavinia is Charleston's most famous ghost. How did she get that way? Back in the early 1800s, Lavinia and her husband John had a house at 6 Mile. Now what that means is that there was one road in and out of Charleston at that point that was called the King's Highway. And there was a house at probably 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, all the way up for travelers to rest. The travelers that were coming down the King's Highway were mainly businessmen, bringing goods into the port to be shipped out and also bringing goods from the port of Charleston up into the upstate. So John and Lavinia had this tavern at 6 Mile where folks could rest, they could water their horses, they could get a meal, they could spend the night if they wanted to, and head on to Charleston the next day. Now Lavinia was very beautiful, and she was said to lure men in, offer them some tea, even if they just wanted a quick rest. She'd say, oh no, have a meal, have some tea, spend the night, just go on about your way tomorrow. So a lot of times the gentlemen did. They would have a good meal, they would go up into their room with their tea, and the tea was allegedly poison, made with oleander. So the tea didn't kill the man right away, he'd fall asleep. And if he didn't fall asleep if he didn't die in his sleep, then it was said that John was waiting outside the door, and at midnight he would go into the guest room door, and a trap door that existed under the bed would fall open, the bed would fall all the way down to the basement, and if the fall still didn't kill the guy, John hopped in the trap door and
Here's Johnny!
They were then able to rob all of their goods from their stagecoach, rob the poor guy, and they got very wealthy this way.
Then one night, a man by the name of John Peoples arrives at the inn. He's traveling from Savannah, Georgia to Charleston, South Carolina with a wagon load of goods and his old dog. They get to the inn and the routine starts all over again. After dinner, Lavinia escorts him upstairs, shows him to the room, and she offers him that hot cup of tea. But he takes that hot cup of tea from her, thanks her for it, goes into the room, shuts the door, and while he's unpacking, he sits that hot cup of tea on a little side table. Well, fortunately for him, but not for his old dog is thirsty and helps himself to the tea. Next thing he knows, his dog's foaming at the mouth, convulsing, and drops over dead.
Why are you gonna bring the dog into it?
Now he's trying to figure out what happened to his old dog when he hears John Fisher outside the door talking to Lavinia about what he's getting ready to do to Mr. Peoples if Mr. Peoples is still alive. Well, Mr. Peoples decides it's a really good day to get the hell out of that house. So he opens up the window, slides out onto the roof over the porch, starts sliding down and making his escape. And that's when John Fisher breaks in. He grabs Mr. Peoples' rifle off the bed, loads it, and as soon as Mr. Peoples hits the ground, he fires a shot at the man. But he misses him. Obviously, this causes Mr. Peoples to put it in high gear. He goes running across the yard, he jumps up on Fisher's horse, rides up through the woods, and heads to Charleston. Once he gets to Charleston, he finds the sheriff. The sheriff comes back with a group of men. They find the Fishers, the bodies, the property, they burn the house to the ground, they arrest the Fishers, and they bring them right back here. They house them here, they keep them here for a year. During that time, they're taken to trial, they're found guilty, and they're sentenced to be hanged. So on February 18th of 1820, they take them from the jail over to Line Street to hang them. Now, they had to change the venue to accommodate the crowd. No one had ever seen a husband and wife hang together in the city of Charleston, so 1,500 to 2,000 people showed up to see this hanging. The very first person on the gallows is John Fisher. They put him on the trap door, put the noose around his neck. Chaplains come out. John Fisher, would you like to ask God's forgiveness of your sins before you head to eternity on this date? He takes him up on the offer. The hangman drops the lever, the trap door opens, and off to eternity he goes, riding on the end of the rope. Cut his body down, set everything back up, they bring up Lavinia Fisher. They put her on the trap door, put the noose around her neck, but the interesting thing about Lavinia Fisher, she's wearing a white wedding dress. Why in the world would a woman wear a white wedding dress to her own hanging? She feels as if the citizens of Charleston will not allow a married woman to be hanged, that they'd riot, they'd protest, and they'd rescue her. Slightly delusional on her part, did not happen, but hey, I guess it's worth a shot. Also, when she requested to be hanged in her wedding dress, the Charleston authorities got suspicious and wondered why she didn't make that request. Didn't take them long to figure out her game plan, but also didn't take them long to figure out a countermeasure for it. What did they do? Simple fix. All they did was hang John Fisher first. Now she's standing up there on that platform, long white dress on, long dark hair blowing in the breeze, smile upon her face, and that noose around her neck. She's waiting on the sheriff to bring a pardon from the governor. Sheriff comes up and says, Lavinia Fisher, there is no pardon from the governor. You will die today, and you will die at the end of the rope around your neck. That's not what she wanted to hear. She throws a fit, an absolute temper tantrum. Well, those same chaplains come out. Lavinia Fisher, would you like to ask God's forgiveness of your sins before you head to eternity on this date? Her response, she spits in their faces. She tells them I have none of that. She says, if you've got a message you want sent to hell, give it to me, I'll carry it. With that, she jumps off the platform, hangs herself, snaps her own neck, deprives anybody the opportunity of doing it for her. Now that's her legend. Also, according to her legend, man would not pardon her crimes, God would not forgive her of her sins, and the devil, he didn't want to hear one damn word she had to say, so he locked the gates of hell and wouldn't let her in. Now she's all dressed up in that pretty white wedding dress with nowhere to go. So what does she do? She comes right back here, and this is where she haunts. She's often seen in here, often heard in here. And she's also attributed to a signature scratch mark. People will end up with 3 parallel scratches down their legs, down their arms, or down their neck and back. That's Lavinia's way of thanking you folks living for coming in here and continuing to torment her as she serves out the rest of her sentence for eternity in this God-forsaken place.